Hello everybody and welcome to part 8 of our retrospective, our look at Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. This is the DenziBlitz. I'm Mike from Electric City Sentai DenziCaster, and we are indeed on part 8. Only 2 more episodes of this show to go, 10 more episodes of Zyuranger, and we will have reached the conclusion. So, the 5 episodes we're looking at today: Smash It, the Mirror of Death, A Dinosaur is Born, Princess May's 7 Metamorphoses, Tears of a Subterranean Beast, and Barai's Deathly Departure. Remember what I said previous episodes, that the Japanese don't believe in spoiler-free episode titles? Well, there you go. Of course, we are using the Shout Factory DVD release. Encourage you to check it out. I've said this every episode. Amazon, Target, Walmart, lots of places online. Check your local retailers. Wonderful. If you're a fan of Tokusatsu, you're a fan of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, want to see where it all started, pick this up. It's only about 40 bucks. And the way Shout Factory and a whole lot of other companies work, the more you buy of it, the more likely they are to make more of it. So please do. And you can actually see behind me, I did a little rearranging some of my Toku stuff back here on the shelf. There you go. That's the remaining 3. There are 4 sets of these things out from folks at Shout Factory. I'd like to have this whole shelf, just nothing but Super Sentai all the way across. I think that'd look pretty cool. So please support Toku when it comes to our shores here in the United States. So, looking at the episodes we are watching today, of course, DenziBlitz, we don't go through a lot of plot detail or things like that in an episode-by-episode fashion. It's impressions, it's thoughts, it's reflections on what we're watching. And of course, with this series, I've been doing a lot of comparisons to Mighty Morphin because that's what I grew up watching. I grew up watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and that's how I relate to this show. It's a very unique feel because I've seen this before, just not through this set of eyes. That's kind of the way it comes off when you watch Zyuranger for the first time. Same thing when I watched Dairanger for the first time. Dairanger I have actually watched all the way through. But I'm looking forward to watching it again with you guys. So, or on DenziCaster, who knows. So, let's talk about these 5 episodes real quick here. We have Smash It, the Mirror of Death. So, really, Lambie, or Scorpina, if you're a Power Rangers fan, plays a pretty big role in some of these initial episodes. Really episodes 36 and 38, she's a fairly big part of. So the whole idea of the Mirror of Death, it's another filler episode. We've got a few of these on this disc before we get into the next big arc, or at least the next emotional arc. And what I can only assume is probably the build-up to the end, since there's only 10 episodes to go after this. The Mirror of Death, there's a MacGuffin. It's called the Mirror of Death in the title. It's called the Mirror of Annihilation in the episode. But the long and short of it is, a kid who has treasure on the brain comes across a map, finds this treasure chest, which has a mirror in it, that if you look at it, you see your reflection, you die. Basically the way it works. Obviously, Queen Bandora would want such a weapon. Not really a monster of the week in the episode. The monster's the mirror, for all intent and purpose. The kid, though, is, if anything, is the proverbial monster. It would be greed, because that is the kid's motivating factor. And sort of the moral of the story is sometimes you have to set aside greed, want, and ambition. So, there you go with that. Then A Dinosaur is Born. Basically, it is the next chapter in the ongoing B-plot of the series. Or I guess C-plot of the series. It's kind of interesting, because I haven't seen this in a lot of Super Sentai shows that I've watched over the years, but there's... typically you have an A-plot, which is save the day from our villains. So in this case, beat Bandora. Then you do have a B-plot in most of these shows. Power Rangers SPD, the B-plot for a lot of episodes was Sky and his father's murder. Or the B-plot was the animosity between Kruger and Emperor Grum. Different shows have different A plot, B plot dynamics. This one sort of has a C plot. So, plot A, beat Bandora. Plot B, Barai. Plot C, these two eggs that showed up really early on and randomly come back for episode to episode later. We get told in this episode that the eggs are going to hatch in 60 days. And it sort of serves as a melancholy reminder because Barai doesn't have 60 days. Barai doesn't even have 60 hours. So it sort of serves in that regard to him. But you get to see Barai slowly making his peace with the fact that he literally has hours, not a couple of 2 or 3 days now, hours left to live, not even in double digits. And we see Geki not quite making his peace with it. Not yet, anyway. So we have that. And that really is the biggest takeaway from the episode, although it is more of the plot with the dinosaur eggs, and maybe something will come of that. I would consider, because it is an actual ongoing plot throughout the episodes that will occasionally interweave with the other stories, I would consider it part of the essentials of Zyuranger. Remember, we are going to have on the Facebook page the essential Zyuranger, the episodes that you really need to watch if you want to get the entire story, but skip the filler episodes. Though the filler in this series tends to be more fun than not. Then we get, let's see here, Princess May's 7 Metamorphoses. So, or Metamorphosi, however I guess you want to say it. It's a tropey episode. This is basically May versus Lambie, the episode. And essentially, the plot of the episode involves May not being able to transform. And so an age-old trope in Super Sentai rears its head, and that is the female ranger being the master of disguise and somehow mysteriously having the powers of whatever she disguises herself as. So we see her as a clown. We see her as a costumed swordswoman. We see her as a nun. We see her as a student. We see her as a bride. We see her in lots of different forms and such in this. But then again, we also see Lambie in lots of different forms and such too. The female human, dare I say, eye candy for the dads, villainess, often falls into that same master of disguise trope. So that's basically what it is. It's basically a bunch of disguises and chasing each other around. Lambie has a monster that is taking the energy of small children in order to mature. The rest of the Rangers are all stuck in a giant cocoon that this baby monster has made, etc., etc. It really is just kind of a mostly fun episode. If there is a knock to that episode, and there is one, the knock that I got out of that episode, the Ranger boys saved themselves. And they showed up in the nick of time just as May had gotten captured and was about to be done in. It says something, I think, for the period and the mentality of some superhero shows at the time. 1993, to someone like myself, I don't think that was too terribly long ago, but or 92 in this case. But the reality of the matter is, in 1992, I was in, oh, good grief, might have still been in elementary school. No, I was in middle school in 92. And 1992 is now 16, 17, 25 years ago. So it's been a while. But we think of it as... at least, like I said, if you're in my age bracket, it wasn't that long ago. But the idea that the girl couldn't save herself, frankly, to my sensibility, a bit of an antiquated notion, but a notion that pops up from time to time, especially in the older Super Sentai shows, the older Toku Hero shows, the older Kamen Rider shows. the girl looks competent, but she can't do it herself. And in this, Maeve is a badass for 99% of the episode, up until the second she's not. I would have been happier with the episode as a whole if she didn't have to beat the monster by herself, but if she had somehow saved the Ranger boys, instead of basically buying time for them and almost getting killed in the process. Nitpicky thing, and it's just the way my sensibilities for the storytelling as opposed to the folks that actually got paid to do it. And then we get into, but still a very fun episode. Then we get into Tears of a Subterranean Beast. Now, I almost consider that episode to be, and this is episode 39, to almost be the prologue to our next arc. The next arc, with episode 40 being called Barai's Deathly Departure, I think it's pretty safe to say that that we're entering the arc where Barai will probably meet his end. The Tears of a Subterranean Beast, basically there is a subterranean monster that is not created by Bandora. It's not one of Bandora's minions. It's just a subterranean monster on Earth. There have been earthquakes, and the monster's eggs have reached the surface, and she has come out after them. And she winds up enraged after Bookback and Totpat eat 2 of her eggs. And so, basically eating 2 of her unborn children. So we're back to that whole hating kids thing. But she doesn't necessarily realize they're the ones that did it. And so she gets tricked into thinking that, no, this is all humanity's fault. And Bandora warps her to that mentality. And Geki is convinced he can do something about it. The Zyurangers pretty much as a whole are. They are convinced that they can talk her out of it. Make Goda is the monster's name. Make Goda see her, come to her senses and see what's actually going on. But the fact of the matter is, Goda is fighting to destroy those who she thinks killed her young. And that is when Barai shows up and tells us, and specifically tells Geki, here's the moment where Geki has to face that sometimes, despite the fact that you're the leader and you're the hero, there are certain things you can't do. And certain times that you can't save the day. And that's a really, frankly, a really brave sell in a superhero show. But probably a lesson that needs to be in most superhero shows, to remember that sometimes things don't go perfectly. It's not always fun and games. It's not always a bed of roses. And basically, Barai reads him the riot act and tells him, look, she's given herself over to Bandora. You're not going to stop her unless you kill her. You're going to have to destroy this monster, period. Otherwise, she's going to destroy you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you need to realize that there are times that there's nothing you can do about it. And Barai is basically explaining his point of view on the monster, and by proxy explaining his point of view about his life. The moments are ticking away. By the time the episode ends, he's got 4 hours left. And there's nothing he can do. And there's nothing anyone can do. And Barai has accepted that. Geki has not. So in his own way, he is trying to prepare his younger brother for, I'm going to die and you can't stop it. And the monster of this episode basically serves as a metaphor for that, which is a pretty interesting way to tell that story. And a really interesting episode to place right before, it's foreshadowing, right before what looks like it's going to be Barai's final arc. I mean, I've read ahead. I know what the episodes are called on the next disc. I have the sneaking suspicion Barai has 4 hours or 2 episodes. There is that. And then, of course, episode 40, Barai's Deathly Departure. about the first half of the episode is a flashback. Most tokusatsu shows at some point in time will have the catch-up episode, the previously on Power Rangers, but they will have the clip show, where it's catching you up on everything that's happened up to this point. And this episode, Barai's Deathly Departure, starts with Barai waking up from a nightmare where death comes for him. He is on a dark bridge, a rickshaw picks him up, the rickshaw is being basically carried by the Grim Reaper. And Barai wakes up in a cold sweat, realizing he doesn't want to die yet, but also realizing that he only has 4 hours to live. So, we see that. We see his reaction to it. We're going to see this dream again. The next time we see the dream in the episode, there is a small boy waiting for Death as well on a bench. And Death will not tell him who it is, but he is concerned, and his concern shifts to the child rather than himself, showing Barai the hero, which I think is a big deal. I do like that. And then we also have this interspersed with Geki trying to come to terms himself, and the rest of the Rangers basically refusing to accept defeat, refusing to accept that Barai's days are numbered, refusing to accept that he is going to die in a matter of hours if he comes back out of the lapseless room. And they start doing the research and digging and looking and trying to find a way to save him. And finally, what we get told is that by Clotho, the next time he sets foot out of the room, he'll never go back. Apparently, Clotho knows something we don't, and the Rangers catch that. But Barai hasn't been clued in. And we have the rickshaw once again towards the end of the episode, and the Rangers just kind of sit there going, now what do we do? So it's a heavy episode for what's going to wind up being a heavier arc, it certainly looks like. So, so far so good. I enjoyed this disc. We had some fun episodes. We have some good story episodes. Everything else, the visuals, the music, the acting, about what we expect. The acting is actually pretty good for this show. It's pretty good for, not just for tokusatsu in general, it's pretty good. So I don't have any fault there. You know, we have the last episode ending on a cliffhanger again. I know Shout Factory didn't plan it that way when they laid the discs out. It just kind of happened. It just apparently seems that every 5 episodes, Zyuranger ends on a cliffhanger. We end with what appears to be Dragon Caesar under the control of Queen Bandora wrecking the city again, much like it did when it first appeared. But we also have this monster that looks suspiciously blank that has just been created and is not wrecking the city. So I've seen enough Toku to kind of have an idea what's coming there. But yeah, we have that plot line beginning. It's already emotional. They're building that emotional investment very well with this episode and the preceding episode, the Subterranean Beast. The music is what the music is. It's pretty good during the episode and garbage at the beginning and end of the episode. The visuals, I've actually stopped and kind of thought about it and looked at it. The visuals on this show, the visual effects, are pretty dang amazing when you stop to reckon that it was 1992 Japanese kids television. So you do have to put yourself in that mindset. You can't sit there and judge it by the standards you would judge a show today. I've always been a believer that you judge a show by the period in which it was created when you're looking at the visual aesthetic. Good acting is good acting, good music is good music, but the visual quality of television has improved over the years by leaps and bounds. So that's the one part of the whole deal that is dependent upon technology to get better. But for 1992, it looks pretty dang awesome. In fact, I would probably say it looks better in here than it did in Mighty Morphin, and that may just be because it all looks like it's of one whole rather than Mighty Morphin looking where you're able to tell when it's Japanese and when it's not. So that does it for this batch of episodes. I think that's pretty much all I got to say on So we got 2 installments left. We're in the final countdown. Just 10 episodes left of Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. So please remember all the things we do here on the channel. Share, like, subscribe. Comment below if you like. Let us know what you think. Kamen Rider Decade is the next show we're going to be doing here on the Blitz. So definitely look forward to that. It is the show that got me into Kamen Rider. So that's going to be what we look at next there. Also, please check out all the other shows here on the ECS network. DenziCaster, Rage Quit Radio, the Announcer's Booth when it pops up from time to time. Please also, if you get a chance, head over to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/DenziCaster, DenziCaster. And if you'd like to help support DenziCaster and help us improve the quality of our product, please feel free to pitch in. You can jump over to cafepress.com/ECS Network, grab yourself some cool t-shirts, maybe a drinking mug, a coffee mug, or what have you, shot glasses, maybe even a cool license plate for the front of your car. All kinds of cool stuff over there, and all the proceeds from that go to improve the channel. Like I said, all the hosts have full-time jobs, so don't worry about that. It's just that full-time job plus buy new equipment and pay bills, somewhere something gets lost. So, anywho, until next time, folks, we thank you very much for joining us this week on The Blitz. I'm Mike. We'll see you next time for Part 9 of our 10-part look at Zyuranger. See you then.